Okay, so drink up some watch content.
What's up, Watch fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Watch Shop.
I'm the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. Check me out.
Yeah.
A new Rolex, Omega, Tudor, anything you want.
Anything you open up your jacket. You know. Michael and I work at a watch company. We talk about watches every week on YouTube, new, old, whatever news is going on.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about a ton, from Rolex Homages to Chopard, a very interesting subject about different levels of finishing. And
a crazy, not confrontation, but story between Chopard and Lange.
Yeah, a bit, like a kind of an awkward moment between leaders of two
you
luxury
grab your collar,
brands.
loosen your tie a little bit. One of those.
Exactly. Very, very, very awkward, tense moment. But
Yes.
You're going to like the story. Today's episode is sponsored by Honey.
One of my favorite browser extensions, actually.
Isn't it bizarre?
I love when sponsors call or reach out or whatever, and I'm like, oh, yeah, of course.
I
They're
already
like, this is
used
what we
that.
do.
Exactly.
I'm like, I know what you do.
With the other sponsors, we have to, either we have to do a lot of work in reading, or we have to actually get the product and then use it and see whether we like it or not. And we send some back, and it's awkward. But when we actually already use it, it's much, much easier. So
Very easy.
Today's episode is sponsored by Honey, and now let's get into our conversation. Chopard. Chopard is. Let's Google what year Chopard.
Last time we talked about Chopard, we talked about the butthole watch. Remember that?
Explain that while I look up this thing real quick.
I can't remember every single detail, but Chopard released a watch called the Alpine Eagle. I was going to say something Eagle.
But
Eagle.
It was the limited edition.
The limited edition Alpine Eagle that was red,
That's right.
and it was served to the recipients of this watch over dinner.
Yeah.
And it looked resounding
Like a soul.
Yeah. And Christian and I, when we saw that, we're like, wow.
Yeah,
Can you
and some
imagine?
guys were like, looks delicious. That's
Can you
for
imagine
dessert.
sitting down to dinner, someone serves it in front of you like your watch. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Oh my God.
You're watching your steak. You accidentally start cutting the watch.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was Chopard. So Chopard dates back to the 19th century, 1860. They are a watch and jewelry company. It's not public info. I would suspect very strongly that is more of a jewelry company than it is a watch company. I do not believe many Chopard watches sell. I think that they sell a lot more jewelry, diamonds, etc.
It comes down to, if someone says, I have Chopard, what do you think of immediately?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that it's probably, which is very unusual in the watch world, but I bet most of their money is brought in by women, right? By female buyers, because it's jewelry and women are buying diamonds.
Yep.
Which is unusual and a very, very interesting, unique situation.
Yep.
But that being said, Chopard does sell watches, of course. They have a collection of watches. The Alpine Eagle being the most popular at the moment. It's like their, Nautilus, Royal Oak competitor.
Yep.
Around $10,000, I believe, under $10,000. Great watch, actually. The quality of the watch is great. I don't love the bracelet. I think that I think it's lagging, but it's a good watch. Mm-hmm. That being said, Chopard does have a line of watches that is awesome. It's the LUC Chopard.
Okay.
That's the line that was introduced in the late 1990s. That is basically for their premium watches, only hand finished. Their finest stuff. They make high complications and they make time only.
Okay.
Right. Back in 2012, they released a skeleton time only watch. That was interesting.
Yep.
But they just gave it a facelift. And now let me show you the difference between these two watches.
Please do.
All right. That is the 2012.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is the new one.
Ooh.
Different ball game.
Okay, so they shrunk the outer bezel. They put the lugs back. That's what makes it look so striking. The fact the lugs hide behind the casing.
It does. But really, that big difference is the appearance of this open work center is just so much more impactful than it was before.
Yeah.
Even though, if you actually look at the movement, they are identical.
That's what I was.
I mean, there could be some minor updates here that I'm seeing. It could be.
Well, you see, for what this is
Minor
very
updates.
minor, but the top one they didn't do. It's not a perfect circle. It juts out for the movement. The second one is a perfect circle.
Right. Exactly. Very minor.
Yeah.
But the way that the first one was done, it made it seem like it made it seem like one of those like department store.
I was
like,
gonna say
you're
the
kind
same
of
thing.
looking into the center of a watch, like very cheap. But here, by making these dagger indices that jet into the movement, look at that overhang.
Yep.
This is design, and then look at the hands.
And the indices itself are perfect.
So fucking cool.
Yep.
That is unique. Unique. And this was not. This was very standard.
I think you just nailed it. I think it's the indices that do it for me.
Absolutely.
It's like gripping into it.
Exactly. This is one of the best watches, I think, one of the best skeleton watches. Is Chopard the direction that, people are generally going to go? No, people want a bigger name brand, whatever. But skeleton watches are like almost impossible to buy.
Skeleton dress watch, even harder. Pure dress watch, not a AP disguised as a dress watch.
Exactly. You can look at Piaget, of course, but Piaget watches are nowhere nearly as they're very, very dressy and thin.
Yes.
This is somewhere a little bit more in the middle, a little bit more substance. I love those thin watches, but I can see why someone else would say, yeah, I want something with a little bit more body to it.
Yeah.
So off to some specs.
Yep.
40 millimeters in diameter, 7.2 millimeters thick, so it's a very, very thin watch.
Yes, very.
And one of the interesting things that I wanted to bring out here, and I had no idea about this until just now, Chopard uses ethical gold. You know what ethical gold is?
Mined in an ethical way?
Yes, mined in an ethical way. So I'm going to read you basically...
Or gold that has good ethics.
Yeah,
not
right.
fool's gold.
It's tricksy. Not gold that's going to steal your watch. So unethical gold refers to gold that is sourced from mines whose workers are subject to inhumane and dangerous working conditions. So Chopard will use either freshly mined gold from small-scale mines that participate in the Swiss Better Gold Association and in fair mined or fair trade programs, or it will recycle gold from the RJC chain of custody. Simply put, quote unquote, the only gold that Chopard will be using is either sourced from mines that meet international best practices and social standards, or is recycled from refineries that source from ethical mines. So either way, it's coming from mines that are that do not, in theory, practice child labor, unethical practices, right? Yes, very interesting.
Interesting that even recycled they do it that way. I would think recycled, they're like, yeah, okay, anything...
Weird, right?
You just chunk it in the melter. Like, it's already mined, is my point. Not right. That it doesn't matter, but it's already done. You're not really...
Chopard actually pays an extra $2,000 for a kilogram of gold.
Wow.
Which is interesting, right?
Do you know how much a kilogram of gold is?
How much is a kilogram of gold?
So a kilo is...
$58,000.
So they pay $60,000.
They pay $60,000.
Which... Isn't a ton, but from a business perspective,
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Money,
so
right?
I guess my first reaction to this is, hogwash, go f yourself, it's everyone. I'm gonna buy the ethical gold while I look it up on my iPhone, which was made by little children. Like, get out of here.
Right.
That's on one part of it, but that falls more on the consumer. I'm a little bit of a negative Nancy. I like that Chopard does this. That is nice of them, right? Ultimately, does it make, you, whatever, more ethical? No, whatever.
Of course.
I do think that large brands should move toward practices like this. I think that it's kind of like a social move. It's also much larger, I would assume, in diamonds. Diamonds are a huge, unethical, kind of business.
Which, tying to them being mostly a jewelry company, probably one too.
Exactly. You would think that. So, again, it's not a reason I would buy I wouldn't not buy a watch because the gold is unethical, because everything else we do is unethical, if you want to go to that far out. But it is nice that they do this. I do appreciate that. And I think, more importantly, if they really feel strongly about this is something that matters to them, I would really suggest that Chopard put together a marketing effort that doesn't just tell you why they do it, but actually comes from the horse's mouth, and so it's sincere. This isn't bullshit. We're not just doing this to to get your money. We actually care about this, and this is why.
Yeah, a serious level person in that company saying that, not the intern.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Exactly. I could see a president or whomever saying, we've all consumed things that have been made unethically, but once I saw the photos or once I learned more, I became, more of just an aware consumer, and I felt like, it was an opportunity for me as an important person. Well, let me put it in different words, but it was an opportunity for me as a powerful person to not be a part of that particular problem. Not that I'm not a part of a problem, because we all are, but I'm not part of that problem, because that takes away all that virtue signaling, making it sound I'm high and mighty and uppity up my ass.
Yeah. Hey, I had the power to do this.
Exactly. It's literally the least I could do, so I did it, and I hope that it resonates with you.
Yeah.
And I hope that it causes change across the industry.
Does Rolex own its? Do they do their own mining, or they have their own refinery?
I don't think they do their own. They have their own refinery, I believe.
Okay.
I was going to say, but I believe
don't quote me either. Don't quote any of us actually on this.
Yeah, you quote me a lot. Anyway, one thing I did want to bring up about the gold in this watch is look at the movement here. The bridges are rhodium plated.
Wow.
So when you see the gold rotor, it fucking pops. Look at the richness.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? It's not competing with the luster against silver or white gold. It's rhodium. So it's dark, matte, and then boom, shiny yellow gold, just gorgeous rotor. Isn't that stunning?
What is that movie from? Yes, it is stunning. What is that movie from the 20s about like the giant robot? Metropolis. See, like this, dark against gold?
Totally.
That's what it reminds me of. That's really cool. Maybe it's the way it's photographed, but 100%.
Totally. No, I agree with you completely. That's a great catch. I think this is a really great watch. The price tag is 26,000 Swiss francs, so around 26,000 United States dollars. I think that is a very, very fair price. Put it in perspective, that is the price of a Patek Nautilus. It's actually less than a Patek Nautilus, and what you're getting here is far more. If you want to put it in perspective with skeleton watches, although it's almost impossible to compare directly, put it next to Piaget.
The thing about, while you're typing that in, the thing about comparing it to Patek is there's a high chance you'll get one. Which changes. Actually, there's only 50 of these, but for the most part, that does change price a lot. Because if you have to get one secondhand, it's a lot more.
So Piaget produces skeleton watches in their Polo at $30,000. So it's on par. But I think this is a better watch. I mean, I think that the Polo bracelet is forgivable at the 10. It's not forgivable at 30. I really feel that way.
Yep.
And you can get I don't want to compare it to the ultra thin skeleton because it's ultra thin, so it's a different animal.
It's Piaget doing Piaget's
thing. But let's lead it with the Polo and this, and it's 30 to 30, and I think that's incredible.
Wow, that Piaget is gorgeous.
Yeah, the Piaget is phenomenal. It is a superior watch, but you're also talking about $60,000.
You can almost buy 3 for the price of 1.
Exactly. Yeah. It's also this movement is 2.4 millimeters thick. It's crazy.
That's the one we talked about where the metal is a specific alloy reinforced with, I think, carbon fiber sheets. Otherwise, the action of tightening the watch on your wrist would snap it.
That's amazing.
That's what you're paying for.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I think that the important, obviously, a couple important subjects here. But another thing is, the watch market is nuts, and we don't just complain about it. You have to think about, okay, well, what's the solution? And really, the solution is finding your own really cool stuff that other people haven't ruined yet.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Ruined is a strong word, but find cool stuff that's off the beaten path, and this is something.
Yeah. And I will say, it is, if you are new to watches, or if you're a big watch fan, it is tough to not get something with a name that is basically one of the big 3 modified with Rolex, AP, Patek. But I have seen firsthand your Breguet gets all the attention. Doesn't matter what anybody else is wearing. We go to a watch meetup. There's Journe, there's Rolex, there's Patek, there's AP, there's Grand Seiko. Breguet's like, let me see that. Can I see that? I never actually looked at that.
Exactly.
So if you're scared of not having the brand name,
Yep.
you can still find an amazing watch that if attention is what you're after in a watch meetup, because that's the only place you'll get attention, go far, go wide.
Exactly.
You'll get a lot more eyes.
It's kind of like, if that's what you're looking for, attention, which is nothing wrong with that. I definitely like attention when it comes to watches. It's not like, you're the best. It's like a matter of conversation. It's cool.
It's just someone wants to see it.
Exactly.
Not even bragging. It's just like, can I see that watch? I haven't seen one of those.
And then you bond with that. It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
But it's also, what you have is going to attract different sorts of people, right?
Yep.
So, it's very similar to dating. You know what I mean?
It
really is.
Yeah, right.
If you're the
you're the Hublot guy.
The Hublot guy that's a frat, douche, that's, you're going to get a girl that likes that, you're not going to get a girl that's read a book recently, it's just the truth, So anyway, it's great stuff. Get off the beaten path. I'd like to see your off the beaten path watches down below. What watches do you guys own that you think are a little bit unusual that other people, don't know about, or and maybe you don't want to ruin it, whatever. Or maybe if you own it already, then you don't have to, you can ruin it because, everyone else.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so that's enough for modern right now. Oh, one more thing about Chopard. So This is an interesting thing. So one of the first watch meetups that I ever went to was a panel with JLC. It was the leaders, the presidents of JLC, Chopard, and Lange. Right?
Wow.
And it was really, really cool. It was uptown. It was really cool. And I actually sat next to Daniel Boulud at the event, I believe. Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was really, really cool. Daniel Boulud's a famous New York chef. So one of the big takeaways, and I learned a lot, but one of the big takeaways, and I like Chopard. So what I'm about to say doesn't look great for Chopard, but it's not. It shouldn't be bad either, right? Chopard has LUC Chopard. This is the supreme level of finishing. This is their premier line, right? They make regular, time only up to high complication, and they said this, and the Lange representative politely pointed out that Lange and Sohne does not know different levels of finishing, right? Or rather, maybe better put, even the Lange and Sohne that is at the lowest level, let's say the Saxony or the 1815, whatever is technically whatever is the cheapest Lange, that watch has supreme finishing. It doesn't have as much, finishing. Meaning,
of course, it's not fully every day. It's not as detailed, I guess.
They're not. It's like the equivalent of. It doesn't have everything on it.
Right.
Right. How am I? I'm not putting.
I know what you're saying. It doesn't have every possible.
It doesn't have every extra bell and whistle. Is kind of what it is.
But baseline, their base model
is impeccably finished.
Just as much care.
Yes.
Just not all the bells and whistles.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. You will find. They basically say you will find the same finishing techniques used here. You will find it in our greatest watch.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that was like a big,
That's an awkward silence.
It was an awkward silence. It was like a big move on the point of Lange. And they made it politely, but that was the first time I said to myself, "Wow!" Like I loved Lange before then, but I was like, "Wow, that's a story. Like that's amazing." Yeah. And the Chopard guy looked like a fucking schmuck, but he shouldn't have. It's simply a difference in brand strategy. It just is.
Yeah.
He should have made it clear that even their entry level models are fantastic watches worth owning, and blah blah blah. Pivot off to a selling point, which he didn't really do that great. But the point is, different brand philosophy, and Lange's is pretty ballsy.
Lange's is any watch you get is the most immaculate quality.
Exactly.
We just add more as you go.
Exactly.
Add more bells and whistles.
Exactly.
Features is the right word I'm thinking.
Exactly. So with that said, let's get into some vintage watches. Oh, funny seeing you here, Christian, Theo, and Harris. Welcome back. Today I'm wearing a Rolex Datejust, reference 1601. This is actually the first watch that I ever bought with babysitting money at the time, actually. So I was wearing it today, and I decided, well, I think I ought to make today's in the metal about Rolex and about Oyster cases, specifically the Date and the Datejust. Both are wildly underrated watches and far more wearable than most people even begin to think. So I want to dispel some of the misinformation out there and show you some beautiful watches that, yes, happen by happenstance, are available in the Theo and Harris watch shop. So let's start with this one. This is a Rolex reference 16,000, and that means two things. One, given that the last digit is a 0, that this watch is fitted with a smooth stainless steel bezel, as opposed to a white gold fluted bezel like mine, or an engine-turned bezel. Now, these watches are generally more, casual and a little bit sporty feeling. The fluted and the engine-turned tend to look a little bit, richer. And the second thing we can know by the reference is because it is a 5-digit reference, not a 4-digit reference like my 1601 here, it comes with a quick set date function, which is very easy. On my 4-digit Datejust, without a quick set date, the date is basically never right. Really easily, you just wind it and set the date real quick. I mean, right now it's the 14th, look. Now it's the 18th, like nothing. This particular example dates to 1981, and I believe this watch is either unpolished ever, or maybe it was polished a long, long time ago, because the case is extremely thick and extremely sharp. You have all those original lines. And I think the most special thing about this watch is the patina on the dial. It's contained to the bottom left, hand quarter of the dial, and which is extremely unusual. Generally, you see, fairly even patina throughout the dial, dispersed, but here it's just focused, as if it was like, I don't know, just like, on a very specific angle, kissed by the sun here, and then never again. In the dark light, it's hardly noticeable. Like right now, I can literally hardly tell that there is patina, but in the sun, it absolutely explodes. Extremely unique. I adore this Datejust.
Does it affect the performance of the watch?
Absolutely not, and that's a good question. That's a little piece of common misconception. People think that patina means that the watch is the mechanics of the watch are less sound or damaged. Absolutely not true. Yes, it is. It could happen if there was water damage that affected the dial and the movement. That's one thing, but a lot of patina had nothing to do with water damage, and all of these watches are inspected and serviced. So when you're buying a watch with patina, you can feel just as safe as one without. Next watch, a little bit different. We are going back to 4-digit Datejust, like my Datejust, but this one is, equally rare, if not a little bit more rare than mine, and my Datejust is pretty fucking rare. This is a matte gray 1601. Again, 01 ending in 1, meaning that it's a white gold fluted bezel. This oyster case is again, basically unpolished, and if ever polished, maybe once a long time ago. It's a fantastic condition watch. We've got obviously lume plots throughout, as well as luminous hands, and again, that matte gray dial is just, it's beautiful, but it's extremely rare. And when it comes to Rolex, rarity is generally a pretty good North Star as far as buying. This is a very, very wearable watch. I have it paired here with kind of a brown, kind of olive calfskin strap, but this watch could go like basically every Datejust with anything, right? From chocolate alligator to our Mojave strap, which is a natural colored ostrich. It can go with our Batman strap, which is a nubuck waterproof black alligator. This could literally do anything. On to one last watch, which isn't a Datejust, but rather a Rolex date. I think that the date is the next frontier in vintage Rolex collectability. These watches have always been loved. These watches have always been popular and whatever, but never anything close to what the Datejust was, just because of size. That's the only reason. That's the only difference between the date and the Datejust. The date is 34 millimeters and the Datejust is 36. And I happen to think that 34 millimeter oysters like this one wear, I think, very substantially when you compare them to 34 millimeter watches from Omega or from Patek or Vacheron or from a whole plethora of brands. The Rolexes just wear so much, they're so much more substantial. It's generally because of their crystals, because of their large crown, their thick oyster case. And speaking of the oyster case, I know I talked about polishing before, and how those watches were in great condition, maybe polished once, also maybe not. This watch, categorically, I'd put any amount of money on it, absolutely never polished. You see all of the original finishing, and not only should I say never polished, also hardly ever worn, which is incredible. We've got all the original finishing, fine edges with the different levels of the polish. Everything here is exactly as it should be. And this watch dates to 1978, which is extremely difficult to believe. It wasn't that long ago that the Datejust was looked at, the vintage Datejust was looked at and a little bit overlooked, right? And in the last 5 years, the Datejust has doubled in value, and in many cases tripled in value, and rightfully so. Those watches were grossly underpriced, and everyone's always saying, well, then what's next? And there are some very interesting off the beaten path things, and there are some non-obvious watches that I think that are good investments, if you want to call it that. But there are also things that are right under our noses, and I think that Rolex dates, I know that Rolex dates are one of those categories. These watches, again, are available in the Theo and Harris shop. I'd love to help you with your first or your next Rolex. So don't walk, run.
Well, that was fun. Wasn't that fun?
When you say in the middle, I think that's going to be fun.
You're an idiot. So our next conversation we're going to get into is Rolex homages, specifically, one homage that we'll be talking about, but really branching off into the larger conversation. But before we do that, a word from our sponsor, Honey.
So I'll be leading this discussion about Honey because I use Honey, which actually I will install it on your browser after this, because what Honey does, actually, real quick side note, my dad was going to name me Sonny. That's why I said
Sonny?
Yep.
I love that.
Well, my parents didn't at the end of the day name me Michael.
It is a
but
cool name.
What Honey does is it automatically finds coupon codes. Sometimes when you're going to go to checkout and it says promo code and you can Google, and sometimes you get a promo code you can toss in.
Yeah, right. But 90% of the time you actually don't even Google because you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some of us are in different tax brackets. Just kidding. No, well, whatever.
Yeah.
So what happens, though, is usually there's all these websites that have that. Honey does that automatically, and say there's 20 coupon codes.
Yep.
When you click the Honey button, it goes through a script and applies them all and sees which one works.
That's amazing.
And then if multiple ones work, it'll take the one with the highest deal, apply it, and then sometimes even if there is no promo code, Honey gives you cash back or something on that.
That's
in
amazing.
general,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
So when I spoke to them, we were talking about this idea of cash back and about savings, and I kind of said, oh, wow, like all jokes aside, watches are quite an expensive hobby, and it's silly. I know it's a big difference in money. You're talking about thousands of dollars, whatever, but people always tell me that they have like little like slush funds. You know what I mean? They're throwing, whether it's coins in or they're throwing money in, or so I know a guy that says, when he goes out for drinks, he always puts $100, right? And whatever savings he has, he puts it in a jar, right?
Yep.
So if it's $20 or $30 or $10 or whatever it is, like, he knows that's going in my watch jar,
Yeah,
So it's the equivalent as I view it. Like, we all spend money. We're spending a little bit too much money maybe, but it is very convenient. It makes us feel a little bit better when we know that the money we're spending really came from money saved, right? Money that, someone else saved you.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty great.
And I see two different ways of going about this. One, at the end, if none of the promo codes work, Honey's just says like, hey, well, I guess you're getting the best deal.
Right. Which is great. It also makes you feel good. Yep.
And the second way is, I don't always think of that. Like if I'm buying something from IKEA for $5, I'm not looking for coupon codes. But Honey will pop up and you just press run, and sometimes it's like, okay, it's $3. Or
it just adds up. It 100% adds up.
It's just the extension always does it for you.
It's always working for you. I love that. So today's episode is, again, sponsored by Honey. Add it to your browser for free at joinhoney.com/Theo and Harris. So they'll know that we sent you, and then you get a bunch of savings. I think it's fantastic. I think it's frankly terrific.
I actually fully recommend it because I've been using it.
Well, thank you,
Works
Honey.
out great. Thanks, Honey.
We'll be talking again soon. Moving on. Long story short, I don't want to talk about Rolex too much. The conversation has to be much larger than Rolex. Otherwise, I'm gonna jump out of a window.
Yes.
But Rolex
you keep trying to do that. You have to pull you back.
Rolex is becoming, it's not becoming. Rolex is extremely frustrating. You really can't really get a Rolex. It's extremely difficult, very expensive, overpriced, blah 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 blah. It's very disheartening.
And you're not dealing with the brand, which is the most annoying part. You're dealing with some grub on the internet that's asking 5 times.
Exactly.
It changes everything.
Exactly. And Rolex Homages, watches that are not Rolex, they're not fake watches, but that pull from Rolex design elements, some of the most famous and lovable design elements of all time.
Yes.
And they bring those elements to a lower price point under their own name. Have existed for years, right? Very, very, very literally, like the Gevril Paul Newman.
Yes.
Right? That was
Steinhardt oftentimes
Steinhardt
is
as well.
called out.
And those watches always kind of got like a little bit of dirty looks.
Too close.
Too close. People are like, you know what? Like, I don't know, it kind of seems scummy, blah, 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 blah. There was always a camp, and the camp has continued to grow every year, of people that do like homages. And myself, even I am kind of into it on many occasions, right?
Yeah.
But still the opposition was large and loud.
Yeah.
Lately, that has not been so much the case. People now kind of get it. They're like, you know what? This is bullshit. You're right. Like maybe I want to own an OP, but I'm not going to spend double, retail or triple retail. So I'm going to buy $1,000 watch that kind of looks like one, and I'm scratching that itch.
There's a very funny, I don't even know if the word's funny, but it's a cycle of like, they have now passed it, and now it is not cool to have a Rolex. It is cool to rebel against having
exactly.
one. I actually
rage against the machine. I'm always using that. So one of the watches that has done this and done this well lately has been a Tissot and their PRX. Now,
sorry to interject here. It is important. We are saying all these watches have aspects of Rolex. Mm-hmm. This is not something, we're not going to suggest something that looks exactly like an OP. That is still
a little bit of a fake watch.
Yes.
But elements of the watches, historically or in current production. There you go. So Tissot's PRX was reintroduced last year. Now, the PRX is a watch of the 1970s, and this is the watch. This is an ugly watch, as I view it.
Yes.
I do not like this watch.
No.
I don't like it.
Very 70s.
You've got, obviously, this faceted bezel, fine, which you can kind of see the design language come through later on. But ultimately, the only thing that translated from the PRX of old to the PRX of new is the name. That's really what translated.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Exactly. Because the PRX itself, which comes in mechanical and in quartz,
yes.
Quartz at 350 and mechanical at 650, I believe, has become like, you can't even get them. It's another one, But at least when you're paying a premium here, you're not paying thousands of dollars. You're paying, an eBay premium of $200. And
that's fascinating, though.
I know. It's when something is that good, everyone wants it.
Yeah, right.
So this is basically an oyster quartz watch with an AP, tapisserie dial.
100%.
That's it, right?
Yep.
The PRX looks nothing like the old PRX. Not really. me. But it is awesome. And at $650, or even at $1,000 if you're paying a premium, or even at $1,100, I think it's a fantastic automatic watch.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
I fully agree.
And again, it is 100% a robbery for Rolex. That is a white gold oyster quartz, like dating.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like
Rolex, undoubtedly that is the exact same design.
Oyster quartz blue. Like,
it says, did you mean Tissot PRX or whatever?
Exactly. Like, it's literally that watch.
Yeah, 100%.
It's that watch. Done.
Yeah.
Except with an AP dial. Yeah. So, is it a little silly? Yeah. It scores 0 on the originality scale. It does.
Yeah.
But at $1,000, I don't think you need that much originality.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that you're buying a reliable watch. I think a quality watch. Period. Like, you can't expect too much. The bracelet should be comfortable. It shouldn't feel cheap. You're not getting an AP bracelet. You're not getting a Rolex bracelet. But at $1,000, I think that this watch actually exceeds what one could, the bar, the bar that you would set.
And it's Tissot. They're not a random Bagel Sport, whatever that makes the copies. It's Tissot. They're great. Or Tissot.
Yeah, Tissot. Yeah, Tissot. They go back to the 1930s, even earlier.
They're one of the pillars of watchmaking.
Exactly. 1853 which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
I know back to the 30s because there were Omega partnerships with Tissot all the way back then. So, but it's a fantastic watch brand. Now they did release another watch. This was an Everose bezel for 1850.
Whoa.
Which is also kind of interesting. Now, obviously, it's a big delta between 650 and 1850, right? Clearly. Yeah. And really, we don't know the weight of the bezel, but it's probably only $400 in gold. 8 grams, 10 grams of gold. It's not a lot.
Right.
And there are other costs associated with it, of course. But forget all that. Forget the multiplier. I actually think that the PRX is underpriced. I think 650 is too low. I think it really should be around $900. Mm-hmm. So I don't even put the spread from 650 to 1850. I think it really like 900 to 1850. Should be the difference.
Okay. Yeah.
Long story short, I wouldn't buy this one because I don't love the rose with the black, but I could totally see them scaling this out with a yellow gold bezel or with titanium bezel. They could have fun with this.
I would love to see a brand like this go full out on one model, even if it's a limited edition, solid rose gold.
Yeah, right. Solid. Yeah, that could be nuts.
Everyone's like, what?
Exactly.
What?
That would be a blast.
50. That's it. Do you know how much that would? I don't know what
people
would
buy it.
It would destroy the common knowledge. Like, I don't know.
And I know they underprice it. Like, price it kind of low. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and just smash.
Of course I'm going to get that. Of course I'm going to get that.
Exactly. It's become like a bit. This watch could, in theory, be like the FU, to Rolex. Like, Tissot could ride that wave.
I could see 10 years ago that being a very stressful decision for Tissot.
Right.
Now,
it's a no-brainer.
There's like a billion watch YouTubers. Everybody's talking about it. It's on Reddit and everything.
Yep.
There's no doubt that would blow up. 100%. If Baltic's model that looks kind of like a Patek blows up because it was that only watch, a watch that's or an event that's not even that crazy televised or anything like that, that'll destroy.
Agreed. And now, as far as the Rolex Homage goes, obviously that's the oyster quartz, right?
Yes.
But I also think, even putting aside the $1,800 model, keeping it at the $650, which I think should be $900 or $1,000, I could see them just doing OPs straight out, just gray, yellow, blue, green, pink, just do the whole gamut of color, do different patterns. Just Tissot could literally change nothing but the dial and bezel for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah. And
make a fortune. They can absolutely murder it.
There's a lot of brands at this level.
Yep.
But once we get like 500 to 1500, that price range, which they do, but if they start having more 38 millimeter, 36, 40, whatever, millimeter watches, 150 meters water resistant, similar design as the OP, done.
100%. And it reminds me very much of like, there was an era, and still till today to some degree, not exactly, because you disprove this, you don't own a Swatch, right?
Right.
But that was a thing, right? There's a Swatch for everyone. There's a Swatch personality or flavor for everyone, basically. Yeah, and I'm sure that I took you to a Swatch store right now. You could find something that you would love.
I want a jellyfish, 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that the PRX could be exactly that. There could be a PRX for everyone. Yep. Like there's a PRX personality, and I know $1,000 is a lot of money, and objectively is. But in the watch community, $1,000 is not a lot of money. It just isn't.
Yep.
$1,500 isn't a lot of money in the watch community. And I think that Tissot could be the $1,000 or $1,500 basically equivalent of Swatch in that everyone gets one. Just because, f*** it.
And Seiko is doing that with their revitalized SKX5.
Is that true?
There is a dress one. There is a more rugged street one that comes in black, like concrete colors or whatever. There's a bunch of different variations. They took away the 007 for it. Now it's kind of a more generic 100 meters water resistance diver style. But that's the exact model.
Very cool.
But for one watch. If they did it for this, done.
I think it's fantastic. I love this watch. I am all in favor of giving a big FU to Rolex. I say Rage Against the Machine a lot because it is ironic because I kind of a little bit...
You kind of...
am the machine?
Yes.
I'm not because I'm a small business owner.
Yes.
But whatever. But I actually mean it. Like kind of fuck the man right now. Like,
in order for change to happen, there has to be change to happen.
Exactly. I would actually I wouldn't do it for free because I have better things to do. But I would do significant marketing work for Tissot, like below what I would ideally bill or regularly bill.
Yeah.
It's like I want to be a part of the change I want to see. You know what I mean? Like I want to see them murder because I'm so fucking fed up. I'm so disgusted. And that's it. So I love this. We'll see in other brands, whatever. But I think that Tissot is the one that can actually do it.
Yep.
So. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a ton. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and really to my channel. It's not, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he's right.
Subscribe to our videos, and that's it. We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.